I know I've reviewed this movie before, but I wanted to review it again since I recently got it on DVD, and I don't think I did the best job on my original review because that was years ago. I just started watching horror. I didn't pay attention to the deeper meaning of things and stuff like that. There is a lot of stuff that I don't like about this movie, but I still love it. And I still think it's an underrated movie that got too much hate. Especially since it's made by WWE and it still was pretty good. But, anyways, this is the movie. Two cops hear about a missing person. They find said missing person with no eyes. One of the cops gets murdered. The other one survives but gets his hand chopped off. So the movie takes place with him and a bunch of prisoners that want to get a month off their sentence. So they fucking do work in an abandoned place. Turns out the hotel manager there is that evil dude's mom. And he is the product of evil, all because of her. This movie is about religious trauma. Pretty bad religious trauma, even worse than most people would have, because, she forces him in a cage, makes him look at, magazines about women while calling them whores and talking about the sin about them. And then when he brings home a girlfriend, I think, in one of the flashbacks, she rips one of her eyes out and do you see the sin? Because she says you brought her home, but I don't think most people would go home with him because he was not in the best state of mind. We don't even hear his flashback, younger version talk or anything. So I wonder what he would have been like. Then eventually he kills his mom during a dramatic scene where she keeps repeating that, "Do you see the sin?" And he goes, "I see the sin." And he fucking throws her and impales her. Another detail I didn't notice is he has all these tripwires to find out where people are and to be able to find him when he's in his little hideout. And one of his tripwires is attached to a bed, which, there's a lot of sins in the Bible, like tattoos and eating ham, I think. I'm not sure. And, of course, sex before marriage. So he has this wire attached to the bed to catch people that are having sex. That's fucking not something I noticed, but I think that's pretty cool. Because obviously I don't think it would do anything if someone was just sleeping in it. And of course he goes after them. Most characters aren't very likable. One of them says the R slur. Another one calls this girl the D slur. Which doesn't go anywhere because none of the characters in this movie, from what we see, are lesbian or bi or pan or, anything like that. They're not any of the women show interest in other women. So it's just an unnecessary use of D slur anyway, because we don't get any representation from it. I'm honestly not surprised with the whole D slur shit, since, it is an older movie, and it's a WWE project. DX with Triple H and Shawn Michaels used to go around saying the F slur, so I'm honestly not surprised about that. I was a little bit surprised about the nudity in this movie. We only saw one scene of nudity, but then again, Edge had a live sex celebration with Lita back in WWE, or I think around this time, so I think I mistakenly said in my original review that the dude that plays Richie is Jake Wary. aka the dude that plays Kevin in the Fred movies. Because for some reason, when I got this DVD, one of the main things I was thinking about is how I got to see Jake Wary. And then when I watched this movie, of course it wasn't him. It was some other dude that kinda looks like him. At the same time, he really doesn't. I don't know how I have mistaken that. I guarantee I talked about it in my original review. That was one of the main things I was thinking about in this one. Kane basically gets killed in this movie, but they did make a sequel like almost 10 years later. He gets his eye torn out and another thing goes through his heart, so he should be fucking dead. But dude's not dead, because he gets a sequel. I also thought that it was pretty cool that 4 of the deaths were all related to things, to those characters. There's this one girl that tried to feed this starving dog, and then a abuser asshole Michael throws a can at it, and he's like, what, it's just a fucking dog. Because he doesn't want her feeding it food, or for some reason, he's just a dick. But he's one of the only 3 people that survive in that movie for some reason. And later, that same girl gets torn apart by that same stray dog and other dogs once she gets a serious injury and she is vulnerable because Kane threw her out a window while she was tied to a rope. And one dude gets halfway killed by his own taser, named Ty. But that's not like the main part. He does get killed with his own taser that he actually used against Kane earlier in the movie. It's hard not to refer to him as Kane, even though his name is Jacob Goodnight in this movie. Anyways, then the other person, his mom, gets killed by getting a thing through her eye, and she throughout the movie kept having people get their eyes ripped out by Kane to see their sin in their eyes. And what else? I know there was one more. No, the one girl that had the phone. Like, nobody else had a phone. She was able to swipe it, and then she gets killed by the phone that she uses throughout the movie. Since she's a prisoner. I do think that's probably one of the best things about this movie, is that people actually have a reason to not have phones besides the few main characters that should. But they're like the first to die, so. Yeah. She gets killed by getting a phone shoved down her throat. Because in, most modern day movies, they're forced to be like, oh, no service, or we're in the forest, there's no service, or the wires get cut, or something stupid. Because back in a lot of horror movies, there wasn't cellular phones you could carry in your pocket. But overall, I do think this movie's overhated. It only has a 9% on Rotten Tomatoes, even though I absolutely love this movie. Though, like I've already said, it does have its flaws. There's one other thing I almost forgot to mention. One girl shaves because her legs are getting too hairy. And then the other girl makes fun of her because, girls shouldn't have hairy legs. It's dumb. But other than that, really good movie.